Hey, what's going on, guys? This is your boy C Will back to you with another video, and yeah, let's talk about it. All right, so I had a lot of people hit me up in the comments about the new firmware update for the Samsung 980 Pro. If you saw my last video, I just upgraded to the 2 terabyte Rocket 4 Plus from Sabrent. But right now, as you can see up on the screen, I popped the actual 980 Pro back in. I've already, just disclaimer, I've already updated the firmware on the 980 Pro. The way that I did it, I actually placed the actual drive back into my computer system, had an open M.2 slot. I downloaded the Samsung Magician software and updated the firmware. And so I've already updated the firmware. So what we're going to do is I just popped this back in because what I'm going to test out is a few questions that people had. One, can you use an external enclosure? Will Samsung Magician recognize it? So we're going to test that out. But the first thing that we have to do is actually format the drive, throw a couple of games on it, and then we're going to pop it into the enclosure and then see if Samsung Magician recognizes it. And if it recognizes it, then you could actually be able to upgrade the firmware. So we're going to test that out, see if that works. Also, another question that people have is that, hey, do you have to reformat the drive after you update the firmware? To be honest with you, I've read that you don't have to reformat the drive, but to be on the safe side, I will actually just move your most important games to the internal PlayStation 5 drive, just to be on the safe side, just in case if something goes wrong with the firmware update and then it erases your stuff, then you don't have to re-download all that stuff over again. All right, so let's test this out. So, all right, so now I got the 980 Pro in, so I need to reformat the drive. So let's do that. And another disclaimer, yes, I already did the update, to the actual firmware. And so you should see it unlocks the actual speeds. And here's the thing, if the external enclosure, the NVMe enclosure, if it doesn't work as far as you being able to use it to update your drive, that means that you have to have like a laptop or a computer with an open M.2 slot in order to update the firmware with the Samsung Magician software. So yeah, it sucks. It sucks big time for people who don't have that type of hardware. So we'll see. All right, so format M.2, and should take a second. And as you can see, it's getting 6,500 megabits per second. But now here's the thing. I know on the actual drive on the box, it says 7,000, for the read speed. But this is a lot better than what we were getting, because we were getting around like 56, 5,700, somewhere around those lines. But now they've unlocked the speed. Now, I don't know if it's just for the actual speed test that the PlayStation 5 is performing, or did they unlock the speed specific to the PlayStation 5? I don't know. It's really hard to tell. But as you can see, we're getting a lot faster speeds, and this is on the 2 terabyte version of the 980 Pro. All right, so what we're going to do is we actually are going to move a few games to the 980 Pro. And then what we'll do is we'll actually take it out of the PlayStation 5, and then we'll pop it into the external enclosure to see if we could be able to get the Samsung Magician software to recognize it. And like I said, if it does, then this should get the option to be able to update the firmware. Now, since my firmware has already been updated, not for sure exactly what's going to show up, but at least you could be able to see this real time. All right, so if we go to M.2, so we got that there. So let's just go ahead and move a few games. Nothing spectacular. I'm just going to move Ratchet & Clank and Spider-Man. Just going to move 2. So shouldn't take a long time, 73 gigabytes. But yeah, like I said, the biggest gripe that I have about this is that if you don't have a external enclosure, and I'm going to talk more about this. I did a video on this. I was actually using this when they came out with the initial update for being able to just use a external hard drive for the PlayStation 5. So I had a spare this is 970 500 gigabyte hard drive. So I was using that as, you know, extra storage until they came out with the official update. But I used this Enclosure, got it for about 60, 70 bucks. Right now you can get it for like 56 bucks. We'll talk more about that. But I know a couple of people was asking me, hey, do you recommend any type of enclosure? Well, I'm not going to recommend anything unless I know that it's actually going to work. But just so you know the type that I have, this is the Asus Strix Arion, Arion, Arion. And so, yeah, this is, you know, what I've been using. So, all right, so now the games have been moved. All right, so let me take the 980 Pro out and I'll show you how to be able to pop it into the enclosure. Let's go. Okay, all right, so we got the PlayStation 5 here. Let's go ahead and take the side panel off. You've probably seen this like 1,000 times now, but if you have the disc version, you want to make sure that it's facing the top and away from you. And then you pull up on the lip here on the side, and then you gently, well, there we go. And then it slides off. All right, so that's how you take the actual panel off. And then as you can see here, we're going to take the actual, now this is the Sabrent heatsink and plate all in one. Absolutely fantastic. If you saw my video on it, you already know what's up. So we're going to take this off. Easy peasy. You don't have to do anything else. And as you can see, the Samsung 980 Pro. So we're going to take that out. Make sure that you keep all your screws to the side. Okay, so this is the, again, this is the Asus Strix Arion enclosure. And with this, this is a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C NVMe M.2 SSD enclosure. I know that's a lot. But basically, what this does, this allows you to be able to put the 980 Pro or any NVMe inside of this, so you could be able to hook it up to your computer with the USB-C cable. This actually comes with a USB-C to USB-C, and it also comes with a USB-C to USB-A. Here we go. It comes with both of these cables. So depending on the actual use case, for me, I have two USB-C ports that's on my desktop. So I'm going to use the USB-C, and it also comes with the actual standoff and this little gadget right here, which allows you to be able to actually pop this open. This also comes with RGB, which is useless. But the speeds on this, it gets up to 10 gigabits per second. The actual theoretical speed that you will see from a desktop standpoint is 1,000 megabytes per second. So, which is pretty fast. All right, so there is a hole, pinhole right here. And once you actually stick this in, this pops open. And when it pops open, boom, you have the internal parts to it. So you have the actual board, and then you have your spot where you actually put in your SSD. So this is like real easy. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to slot this in like that at an angle. It pops in. And the way that you do this, it actually has a slit in between the standoff. And so you actually want to place that in there first like that, and then screw it down. So you take your screwdriver. You're going to need a flathead. So let's swap that out. I'll fix it. All right. So you do that. Boom. You don't have to over tighten. So that's what it's going to look like. And once you do that, it automatically comes with thermal pads and everything on here. One for the actual NVMe drive and the other for the actual chipset. And so this just locks in. And once you have it, it snaps in. Boom. That's it. This is your enclosure. So at the bottom, it has USB-C. So you take that and then the other end is going to plug into the computer. All right, so we're going to plug this into my desktop computer, and let's see if Samsung Magician recognizes it. Okay, I have the drive plugged in. So first thing that we would need to do though, we would actually need to go to Samsung's website. This is what Samsung Magician looks like. You need to make sure that you could scroll all the way down here to the bottom to download files. And I'll make sure I put this link in the description below. The latest version of Samsung Magician as of today is 7.0.1. And so, yeah. So make sure that you download, install that. And once you do that, if I go back up here to the top. All right, so let me open up Samsung Magician. All right, so here's Samsung Magician. And right now I am not showing. Let me just see if I can slide that. Okay. So I have external, let's see. No, that's my nope, that's my external hard drive. Got a SATA drive, my gigabyte drive, a Western Digital gaming drive. Okay, I am not seeing the 980 Pro. So let me do this. Let me make sure that the 980 Pro is showing up. Right now, I'm actually not showing the 980 Pro even as an external hard drive. It's not showing up. There's another thing that I could be able to check. Let me see. All right, so if we open up disk management, you must initialize a disk before a logical disk manager can access it. Disk 10. What's disk 10 though? It sees it plugged in. It's the 1.863 gigabytes. It wants me to initialize the disk, but if I initialize it, it may format it. But going back to my initial thoughts, I am not showing the actual drive in Samsung Magician. Scan the drive information. I'm not seeing it. And it's interesting because, oh, let me see. Is this it? Oh, wait a minute. This is it. So it's showing up as ESDS1C, 1.8 terabytes. Drive details. Let's see. So it sees it. Can't perform any benchmarks. No drive optimization. Dashboard. Performance. Can't see anything, but that's my drive. So it's showing up as ESD51C. It's interesting. Well, while we're doing this, just so you know, the actual NVMe 980 Pro firmware is actually this number right here. So you can actually download the firmware. I haven't experienced trying to actually sideload this onto the actual drive, but just so you know what the actual firmware number is, it's 4B2QGXA7. Here it's unallocated. So what I am going to do is let me initialize the disk. Okay, here we go. Let me initialize the disk, GUID partition. I want to see what it does. All right. Let's just do a new volume. I just don't want this to format. New drive letter, assign drive letter G. Yeah, it's going to format it. All right, so even with the external enclosure, it wants me to format in order to be able to see it. It's not recognizing it without me formatting. So I think that answers your question. I don't know if there's another way to be able to do this, but just kind of going through the motions. Like I said, I normally formatted my drive anyway when doing this, but the fact that you have to do this, so this goes back to what I was saying, just move all your games over to your internal storage, or maybe another external drive that you have. Just move your games over, come in, reformat. I'm going to go ahead and format this because I want to see if the Samsung Magician software recognizes it. Yeah, because it's not popping up with any firmware updates. So, but I want to see if this is going to make a difference. So I formatted the drive. So now I bet if I go back to folder here, so now look, I could be able to access the actual 980 Pro, right? Now if I hit refresh on this, so let me minimize that stuff. So if I hit refresh on this, let me see what it looks like now. All right, so that's my main drive. That's my SATA drive. Let me hit over. So it's still showing up as ESD S1C USB. The fact that it's saying USB is also telling me that because the way that because we're using the external enclosure, it's not allowing me to, it doesn't recognize it as the NVMe drive, basically. New volume. Yeah, it's not even recognizing it. It's just recognized as an external drive. No information. Even though it's a Samsung drive, this is Samsung, it's not, with the enclosure, it's not working, unfortunately. Now, I've heard some people talk about if you have a Thunderbolt port. I don't have that. Most people probably don't, usually depending on what type of system you have and your motherboard. But this is what I was talking about. And I'm glad that you're able to see this. This is what I was talking about, where, everybody, if you don't have the right stuff, you could, buying this enclosure or buying an enclosure is not going to help you. And I'm going to do some more research on it, take a look. But from what I can see right now, with all the updates, this is not recognizing the actual drive to be able to pull in the actual right information. It's only recognizing the actual enclosure, and it's only looking at it as an external drive. But you're supposed to be able to go in here and go to update, and you could be able to see the latest firmware and information and all that different type of stuff, to see any other information that's not giving me. Normally it will pop up with like a firmware update information and stuff like that, and it's not doing it. You can't see it. So Samsung Magician software does not work. Not with the external enclosure. So don't waste your time doing it. But if you want to update your firmware, you're definitely gonna have to pop this into, like I said, either a laptop, an extra M.2 slot on your laptop, or just on your desktop, an open M.2 slot. Once you pop that in, you install it, you can come in here and then you can actually be able to update the firmware using Samsung Magician software. Pop it back into your PlayStation 5 and keep it moving. But again, I hate it that we even have to get to this point to be able to, quote unquote, unlock the speeds of the Samsung 980 Pro. And yeah, so there you go. Meantime, if you don't have the 980 Pro already, I would probably just look into getting a different drive. You could look into the Sabrent 2 terabyte Rocket 4 Plus, or the WD-SN 850, or the FireCuda 530. Those drives, you don't have to do any type of updates or anything to them. So my recommendation. I'll put some links down in the description below. Now you know. And hey, if you got questions, you got concerns, put it down in the comments, and I'll holler at you later. Peace.